Ragnarok is the 17th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let that sink in. This franchise has now gone to 17 movies. And people are still coming out in droves to see these movies. Recently I had a chance to interview producer Brad Winderbaum about why people are still attracted to these films, and this is what he had to say.
You know, I think that it's always fun to see a larger-than-life adventure and to kind of like escape your everyday life and go and see something like really big on screen. And I know that's what brought me to the movies as a kid.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
You know, that's the kind of adventures you want to put on screen.
Absolutely, yeah.
Kind of make people run out of the theater like I did when I was a kid and I saw Indiana Jones and I was having a good
Absolutely, man.
And if you want to see more of that red carpet premiere stuff, if you haven't seen it already, I'll put a link to it at the end of this video. But for now, let's get stuck into the movie. So Thor Ragnarok, the basic premise is that Asgard is under attack from the goddess of death, Hela, played by Cate Blanchett. In the meantime, Thor is imprisoned on a planet where he meets up with his old Avengers teammate, the Hulk, and eventually they team up with Thor's brother Loki, who's, you know, still kind of a grey area character, as well as an Asgardian Valkyrie. They team up in order to save Asgard and defeat Hela. Now this movie was directed by a New Zealander named Taika Waititi. Now Taika Waititi has come from doing a lot of kind of low budget, like independent sort of comedy films, including Hunt for the Wilder People, What We Do in the Shadows, and Boy. But all of his films have been remarkably good, and this is his big Hollywood break. So I was interested to see, like, you know, how much of his personality went into this film, much like when James Gunn was picked to do Guardians of the Galaxy. Being a massive James Gunn fan, I was really looking forward to seeing what he brought, and that movie with all its kind of quirks and weirdness, like, it really was very much a James Gunn film. And this time around, because Taika is, you know, he comes from sort of a stand-up comedy background, he's a comedy director. And my god, if you're ever after an instance where you want to see how much of a director's influence can come out in a film, this is a prime example. I wasn't a massive fan of the previous two Thor films. Like, I liked them, but they weren't my favorite in the MCU. But this time around, I was interested to see, like, you know, because I heard all these things about how funny it was, and oh my god, was it ever! This was one of the funniest comedies I have seen this year, from start to finish, and there was never any sort of forced comedy or, you know, the jokes were great. Visually, the movie is absolutely spectacular. It is so bright and colourful, and I implore you to see it in 3D if you like your 3D movies. The 3D in this absolutely added such another layer to it. Not just things coming at the screen, which there were a few moments where I flinched, but I don't know, it just added a whole nother level. Like, there was this one shot of the gladiatorial arena where Thor and Hulk are fighting, and I mean, this thing is absolutely massive, and so we get this huge wide shot where Thor and Hulk are just these tiny little things there, but because of the 3D, it almost looked like you could sort of pick them up and, like, smash them together. Not that I do that with my toys, but no, I don't. And there were a lot of other scenes that just dazzled with brilliance. You know, but 3D aside, yeah, the effects were fantastic. The costumes, the whole art department. This movie needs to be nominated for an Oscar for production design. As far as the performances go, look, they were fine. Everyone, I mean, you know, Chris Hemsworth, he knows how to play Thor by now. I don't think any director can really tell him how to do it, although he was kind of different in this movie, being that his character was a lot funnier. Everybody else did just fine. Look, the whole movie, it was like a big nod to 70s and 80s sci-fi. You know, it had a very sort of Flash Gordon feel to it, with like a 80s synth score going on in the background, and yeah, it was a treat. But I have to say, its biggest strength was also its biggest weakness, because the movie spent so much time being a really entertaining comedy that it forgot about character development, and what we were given were just kind of bland one-note characters. And I'm looking at you, Cate Blanchett, because my god, her character Hela, I mean, you know, if you've seen in the trailers, she looks incredible. That costume, the makeup, everything about her just looked amazing, and she had so much potential to be a great Marvel villain, but she was completely one note. She was just there to be like, "Bwahaha, I'm taking over Asgard and you shall all perish in my destruction," and that's pretty much her. Even people like Jeff Goldblum as the Grand Master, like, yeah, you know, he was Jeff Goldblum. I mean, he's always entertaining, but at the end of the day, you know, he was just Jeff Goldblum, and the problem was none of the characters really developed towards the end of the film. You know, in any good story, your characters have to go through a journey. They have to be different people at the end of the movie, but aside from, there were, you know, obviously some changes, but overall, I just never got the impression that our characters had been through anything. Aside from that, like, the fight scenes were great, they were well choreographed, well shot, but there were never any stakes at hand. Like, you just knew our heroes were gonna bash through hordes of weird demon-y type people or whoever they were fighting, and I never really sort of felt any great sort of, oh my god, will they get through this alive? Yeah, they will. So yeah, this is one of these instances where my brain is in two parts about how to handle this movie. Like, on one hand, it was so entertaining. I loved it. The 2 hour and 10 minute runtime went by like that. There was not a dull moment in the whole thing. But on the other hand, you know, I wanted great characters. And I mean, I'm a huge fan of good female characters, and I just thought Hela was going to be incredible in this, but she was probably one of the worst Marvel villains in the MCU. So look, go into this movie expecting just a good, turn your brain off, enjoy it, popcorn kind of movie, because that's all you're going to get from this. You're not going to get anything that's going to, you know, give you any sense of emotion or, you know, any lessons about life. But that being said, it was a solidly entertaining film, really well made. I've got to hand it to everyone. They did a cracking job on it. I'm going to give Thor Ragnarok an 8 out of 10. So if you've been following my channel, as you know, I recently did the red carpet Australian premiere where I got to interview Brad, the producer, and got an exclusive interview with Chris Hemsworth. Kinda? Sorta? So I'll pop a link to that video at the end of this. Make sure you check it out. In the meantime, thank you again to everybody who's been subscribing to my channel. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And what did you guys think of Thor Ragnarok? I'd love to hear some thoughts because, like I said, it was one of those movies that I'm sure some people will find more substance to it than I did, but yeah, I'd love to hear from you. So drop me some comments either here or on Facebook. All the social media links are in the description below because I like to talk about movies, and I would love to talk about movies with you. Catch you next time.
Click subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest movie reviews. Skynet will be taking over any day now, so what have you got to lose? Nyah.